right. Now that is a great description of the background of how you keep in touch with people and set up gigs and how you work in a geographic area, and that fine balance between letting people know that there's a nice opportunity, but not getting to be annoying.
No, I mean, and again, we can't take the rejection or the lack of response personally. It's no reflection on the merits of what we're doing.
Right.
And I accepted that a long time ago. So sometimes, tours are, sometimes I'll even lose money if I know I want to go someplace and other gigs don't pan out. I'll still go.
That's worth it in the long run.
Yeah, the other thing I found is if you go someplace, you generally will find out about opportunities that you would never know about unless you go there. So very often, well, my friend Chi, who you didn't meet, but I hope you might, maybe we'll meet her another time, who is from Hong Kong. I have a friend in Berkeley who's a librarian who's also a classical lutenist who likes jazz guitar, Frank Lay. He's a very nice guy. So he was saying to me, and I can think of many opportunities like this. This is a fairly recent one, about 3-4 years ago. And he met someone in Hong Kong. He was there to perform at a church. And he said, I met a guitarist here who's brought some people over to play jazz. And would you like his information? I said, it's very kind of you. Sure. I thought, going to Hong Kong. Well, it's kind of a long shot. But I emailed this man who turned out to be Chi, my friend who was just here. He replied immediately. And he'd been bringing people over, and I spent 2 great weeks with him in Hong Kong. And we went to Macau, we did workshops, and sadly now the city is really changing in a way that might be difficult, if not impossible, to go back.
Yeah,
it's difficult.
Didn't hear about that.
Yeah. But I had a great time with him there, and he was a wonderful host. And now we're back in touch. It's great.
Good. So then there's the audience side of that. What are the things that you find successful in attracting people to come to the performances?
Interesting. Well, part of that is how you present yourself, and some of that I tell students is to have an internet presence or something that you can use to promote yourself. If a club or a concert promoter hires you, presumably they're going to do some promotion, but I think of it sort of as a partnership, and you know this very well in your own experiences working and playing. Whatever you can do to try to bring some friends in, so at the very least, some kind of a media post, some kind of a social media post. Now that didn't exist when we started. So, a decent Facebook post, maybe with a little video clip, might be the difference between 10 or 15 people in a small club and 50 people in a club. That can make a huge difference in terms of business for the club and also some kind of an engagement in the future.
Right.
If the club owner sees the place full and he loves the music, you can maybe start to build a relationship. So there is some commerce involved in it. It's not just playing well. I mean, if you want to be employed as a musician, I think club owners really appreciate if you're willing to think of it as a partnership with them to try to bring some people in. So if you can do anything with the newspaper in terms of a review or a listing or an interview on the radio, anything you can do to help bring some people in, and if a club owner sees you willing to put the effort forth, that's another way to help build relationships. So I try to do that whenever I can.
Good. And I think that has an accumulative effect too, right?
Of course it does. Yeah, and I think you begin to get a reputation as someone who is business-minded and hopefully professional, shows up and does a good job and is really willing to try to go the extra mile to try to bring some people in.
Yeah.
It's important.
Yeah, because whether it's a concert hall or a restaurant, that's what they're looking for.
Yeah, I mean they want business I mean these folks are in business. So our job is that's not a compromise if you're taking some time away from physically playing to try to promote something.
Yeah.
I mean it's just a better experience for everybody if the room is full. So
well, you said that you learned a long time ago not to take things personally.
Yeah, I try not to.
And I remember a long time ago, Bruce Foreman saying, "Man, you got to have a thick skin, if you're in this business." And I think that he kind of made the point that it goes both ways. Don't believe your good reviews, and don't be thrown by somebody's criticism.
I think that's right. I mean, I'll read any review, and I have had some negative reviews. Because if I can learn something, I mean, if someone just says I don't like him, there's nothing I can use there, nothing I can learn. They just don't like my playing. But if they say why they don't like it, maybe I'll learn something because I know exactly what I sound like to me. I have no idea what I sound like to someone hearing me for the first time, and maybe something I can use there. So I'll read any review, or if someone wants to make a comment to me, positive or negative, I'll sit and listen. Absolutely, I will.
Yeah.
And I think to be open to observations, either from an audience member or another group member, whether or not you agree, is an opportunity for a way to grow maybe and get a sense of how your playing is perceived by others. I think that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. And one other thought about the thick skin. What was I thinking? It just flew out of my head now. Maybe it'll come back to me. In terms of what Bruce was saying, absolutely don't let anything go to your head.
Yep.
If you get a glowing review, I take it all with a grain of salt, quite honestly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have to please ourselves first, really.
Yep.
But we do want to try to please the audience too.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, beyond the opinions of others, we have the challenges of relationships when
Yep.
we're spending so much of our time,
Yes.
doing this music thing.
Indeed.
And that, and there's a comment from
from the peanut gallery. Someone needs to be petted or take a walk.
yeah. So the relationships we have with musicians
Mhm.
and the balancing our own self-criticism with building our repertoire and our performance things. I think that it requires a high level of mental and emotional resiliency.
I agree.
And are there things that you have learned either just from the direct experience or lessons that help you in that regard?
It's a good question. I think it's a balancing act, and sometimes we're trying to have 7 dishes spinning on little poles, and sometimes the dish falls off. So I mean, the bottom line is: are you feeling happy and fulfilled? Do you feel like you're growing? Do you feel like people around you are happy when they hear you or they interact with you at whatever level, as a teacher, as a player, in business? And sometimes you need to kind of step back and readjust things. I need to spend a little more time here and a little less time here. Some of this depends on the financial demands that you have at that moment.
Yep.
I think you probably had other ideas when Preston and Kai were young in terms of what you needed to have, or at the time you needed to spend with them, and now they're doing great and independently on their own as adults. So things have changed probably. Now you have more time maybe to focus on what you're doing, more time with Christy as opposed to worrying about raising everybody else.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's fluid, it changes. So the bottom line is, are you feeling happy and fulfilled? And if not, how can you adjust your schedule for that to try to accommodate that? I think it also sometimes asks a lot of the people around us in our personal relationships, because we do get so wrapped up in this. I mean, we tend to be kind of self-absorbed sometimes. We have to, just to try to keep it all going, and I absolutely understand that.
Yeah.
And where people might say, hey, could we take a little less time with this and a little more time over here? Okay, sure. I think sometimes we have to just be open to kind of letting it go and just taking a breath and stepping back a little.
Yes.
It's not so easy. You and I have kind of a similar work ethic.
I admire your work very much. So
Likewise.
Nice to hear that you say that. So one thing that I kind of like to pose as a question is, from where you are now, what would you tell the 18-year-old John that might help him on his way?
That's interesting. Well, a lot of the things we've just been saying, I didn't really have a game plan when I was 18, other than I knew that I loved music and I wanted to be a musician. Thankfully, teaching kind of developed as an afterthought because I didn't start out as a teacher. But I would say to any young musician, you sound great, but understand the fact that you probably won't make a living just playing jazz. If you like to play more than one style, you could make a living just playing. But think about some other income streams, teaching and playing, some other element of music like recording, production, publishing, something else. Or something outside of music that you like well enough to do that still leaves you enough time to feel like you have a musical life.
Right.
But, your abilities as a player are not necessarily always a reflection of how successful you're going to be or how many opportunities you're going to have. You have to really be proactive to create your own musical reality. And you and I, neither one of us sits around waiting for things to happen. We make things happen, and we're not always successful with that. But if you become, I think, a pretty professional musician that really has something to offer, and you work hard, you can find an audience, and you can find a way to somehow make a living and piece it all together. But it takes a while to develop a strategy. So I just kind of fell into the road, and I kind of fell into teaching without a real game plan there. And thankfully those things kind of manifested themselves, and I realized traveling I liked well enough to do. I like to teach. So those two things sort of made it possible to have my little life. It wasn't a plan, really.
But it became one.
It became a plan, yeah. So I guess the other thing I'd say to my younger self or a younger musician is, if an opportunity looks interesting, don't be afraid to take it if you can, or try to structure your life in a way that you can kind of turn on a dime. So in my case, I was living outside of New York City, just getting started as a young jazz musician. I had a little teaching job finally, so I wasn't having to do something else other than music. And I met David Friesen, this bassist who you know about, at a little club in New York where I used to go sit in, and he invited me out to Portland, Oregon. No plans to live in Portland, Oregon. But as soon as I got there, he found us work on the road for the whole summer playing little gigs. So I stayed.
Nice.
and my initial experiences on the road were with him. So what turned into 3 weeks is now 45 years later. I still live in Portland, Oregon. Would I have done better if I stayed in New York? I'm not sure, but I have no regrets. I mean, we wouldn't have met, and I wouldn't have had these chances to play all over the world, starting with David. Really, only if you want to travel, if you have interest in trying to travel, it could either be going to a place where you know someone else who's willing to book something for you, so you have something to go and do as a player, or just one other musician who's already traveling or willing to travel, and you start. This is what I did. I started traveling with David, and I did it long enough with him that I could then start to put my own trips together.
Yeah.
It's not a plan.
Yeah.
But I realized I liked it enough that I wanted to keep going after he and I stopped playing, and there was no animosity there. We were just moving in different directions musically, so it was a friendly parting of the ways. We're still friends.
Yeah.
But it was kind of a friendly parting of the ways musically, and but I realized I had done enough traveling with him that I could maybe begin to build my own network based on the network I started to have with him, and it's worked out okay.
Yep.
Rich and famous I'm not, but I've done it now probably in maybe 20 countries just with a network of friends like you. So it's like I said, it's very grassroots. Staying with friends and playing with friends. I can't take people with me, but I'm grateful to have it. I really am.
Good. We'll see if we can get through one more before this day. It's a little too noisy.
Someone needs to take a walk right away.
And that is, there's the kind of aspect of music and probably everything, but because we have focused so much of our energy and time in life and music, and because it's artistic by nature, I think there's this non-rational, metaphysical, or one would say spiritual aspect to it. And I wonder if you want to comment on that. It's not really a question as much as an invitation to share.
Well, I think, as I would approve this obviously, but I think I do believe in a higher power, whatever it is. I wouldn't affiliate myself with one particular religion at this point, but it just seems hard to believe that all this just sort of sprung randomly out of nothing, that there is some intelligent design here. And I mean, the planets vibrated before we were here probably. Music has been around probably since the creation, so. But I sort of think
it was a big bang. So.
Yes, it was definitely, and there may have been a tone involved, maybe A flat. But I think that music, and you've had this experience too probably, when you feel like you're really playing well, and the audience is really engaged, and it really feels like a meaningful experience for everybody. It feels like something beyond just us making music for other humans. It feels like something's being channeled through us, and it has nothing to do with the size of the audience or the money you're making. It's just the experience of making music in a way that feels meaningful for you and the other people. And so I think that spiritual component is some higher power sort of using music to communicate through you. That's the way it feels. And I don't always feel this way, not at all. Sometimes I feel like I'm just, okay, this is me playing the guitar. It's not particularly great at the moment, but I'm playing something. And other times it feels like something more meaningful. And I'm sure you've had this experience too. So could that be a higher power communicating through us somehow? Maybe. And I don't think about that every time I play, but I do absolutely try to make it meaningful every time I play. So that also might be some higher power trying to instill in me the desire to be a better musician.
Wow. That is so great. Well, John, how about if we close here? And if you have a few minutes, I'd like to do a short playthrough of Emily.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll grab some guitars.
Let's do it. Hopefully that is that enough content for the interview, or?
Yes.